probably a year ago. So I got accepted into that. And part of the task, there's a lot of tasks. I would say it's similar to like high performance 1 or 2, like it's quite in depth, as you have to give a 20-minute presentation on some area of skill. So I chose to talk about physicality, teaching physicality in the female game. So that was one of, I think there's 14 or 16 tasks, all really great stuff, very hands-on. So I don't want to misspeak about how many people are in the skills instructor group, but I would say there's probably 20 of us, maybe more. But like Caroline Ouellette's in this group, Nat Rivard, who, Wally, you probably would have coached Nat. Quite a few women, which is cool, and people in the female game. So I think my presentation was well received. But it was a while ago now. I think I did it back in November. So I've changed my mind on a lot of things already because still haven't figured anything out, Wally. I need a couple more years.
Okay. Well, I want to say hi to Dave Barrett. Dave, I'm not sure everybody knows you on board here, but if you could give a little bit of background, we'll turn it back over to Kim. Just introduce yourself to the group.
Morning, guys. I just finished teaching 5 classes this semester, so I didn't have a lot of spare time. I'm hoping to participate a little bit more and learn from you guys as we work through the next few weeks. I got involved in this a long time ago when I was finished coaching a Western women's hockey team for a couple of years, and still have a vested interest in the women's game, although I'm not actively coaching right now. And when I saw Kim's topic today, I thought this is something I need to make sure I pay attention to. So that's why I'm here. Thanks, Wally. And I hope you're feeling better, Wally. You take care of yourself, okay?
Well, I will. Okay. Okay, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you. I don't know if this is a rehearsal or a repeat of what you've done before, or a revised one, which you might revise more after the Sharks give you the once over on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. And I will say, one of my favorite things I say to my players are excuses are for losers. So Wally texted me last night. I was on the way back from Algonquin Park, being off the grid for 5 days with my family. So I'm digging out of a bit of an email work hole here. But of course, I spent 45 minutes revising this for you, Wally, because excuses are for losers. And you got to step up when the opportunity gives itself. So let's see if we can figure out what we're doing here. I got to open up stuff. You'd think I'd be good at this by now. We'll see what happens when I share. Can you guys see this or no? Can you see my video screen here?
Yep, I can.
Is it up there? We're good to go. Okay. Everyone's good? You guys can see it?
Everybody should see it, or they say no.
Okay.
I don't see it.
We're okay or no?
It's good. Thumbs up.
All right, beautiful. I can't see the thumbs because now I'm just staring at my screen. So that's what's happening now. Okay, so this is a modification of the presentation I gave for my Hockey Canada skills course because, like I said, changed my mind on a bunch of things and trying to teach it to house league sort of U9 kids all the way up to junior level players. So a lot of the clips you're going to see are from the World Championships, not from the Olympics because I haven't had time to fit all those ones in. But I think it's an area that our organization needs to be way better at. I think all female players need to be way better at, and I think can start to be taught all the way in U9 House League to build the foundation. So I'll start rolling here. So for us at our organization, we have shared principles. I've talked about this at length here before. So our 3 Ps are poise, pace, and physicality. And that allows us to speak a similar language, similar vocabulary. We have a ton of teams. We're the biggest girls association in the world. So obviously I can't be the skills coach for every team, not enough hours in the day. And we also can't, expect paid skills coaches to come in and run Kim's approved practices all the time. Obviously we all have our own autonomy and free will. So, but if we can work with the shared principles and say, okay, skill coach X, we need to work on physicality and building a wall and creating an escape route and terms like that. Any skills coach could come in and address those needs. So it's this might be a unique way of doing it that's specific to our organization, because we can't just farm out, total female hockey or one skills area to do it, because we use 25 different rinks across the GTA to fulfill our practices. So you can imagine the kind of commute time, and with the gas prices the way they are, it probably wouldn't work very well. But basically, we're not prescribing drills for the majority of our teams. However, I am taking over sort of more of a prescriptive idea or route with our U9 and our U11 programs. So having more of a shared curriculum and shared practice plans for next season. So that's kind of how we got here. So this is our, our way to play. So all our teams play smart, fast, physical hockey, gain and maintain possession, and create advantages all over the ice. So no matter what level we're at, we're trying to do that. Clearly, our junior team is going to do that differently than our U9 rep team, but then we define it. So we define physicality using strength and speed to overwhelm. Love that word. And then we look at it on offense and defense. So owning our space, and on defense, contain, pressure, obtain. For the purpose of this presentation, we're just talking about offense. So that idea of owning our space, which I think is a very powerful term to use with our female players. So this is the Ivy Leaguer and me taking over. But this is an example of a one-page PDF we would share with all our coaches. And I may revise this for next year to try and kind of simplify a little bit, but our coaches seem to like it, and our players seem to be able to speak this language. So obviously we're talking about offense, thinking of play ahead, and initiating contact. That's the term I'm using incessantly with our players and teams. Initiate contact when you have the puck, which is a very new concept to the majority of them. I won't bore you with all the details of this. Obviously, if you want a copy of it, you know where to find me, or you can just come and stare at this video later when Wally posts it. But think of play ahead, initiating contact, and all the skills that go into that, and how do we teach the basics. So here we go from the Worlds. I'm just showing a clip of like this type of contact happens 100 times a game, maybe more. Turnbull and Hirakoski here. So owning that space, little bump, not great defense by Finland there. But again, this type of race, right? And how many millions of times do we see this in a game? And Turnbull could just go in and have a sword fight here with Hirakoski. But, she gains that space, initiates contact through the stick, makes a pretty good play. So we'll keep rolling through the clips here. So thinking of play ahead, we'll start with building a wall. So you can see here, Ambrose moves it to Nurse. So Nurse in the corner, here's the one you want to see. Just that idea of putting her butt into the other player's hands. That's what allows her to make that play. So we'll show it again here, I think, slow-mo. So Ambrose does it as well. But just that idea of turning your body, like this is not an elite level skill. Like a house league player can understand that. She might not have the heel-to-heel skills maybe to do it, but just understanding, put your butt in the other girl's hands, it always gets a good laugh. They can do that, right? And can they do it against Team Russia in the World Championships? That might take a couple of years, but right, just protects the play, pucks in her feet, right? And that's a position where a lot of girls are uncomfortable. I tell them we're going to put the puck in your feet and get pinned, and they're like, but I don't have it on my stick. Well, we got to get used to not having the puck on our stick all the time, guys. So anyways, really simple play. And these would be the clips that I would show our coaches to teach them. And they then have access to all these clips. So this is a pretty good clip. You see both Jenner and Poulin do the exact same thing on the exact same shift. This is from the PWHPA. So through the hands, scoring chance, and then the other way on the same shift, Poulin, through fast hands, scoring chance. So again, Jenner here cuts off, I think it's Poulin, so that's a pretty good battle. Initiating contact, right? This is all legal, but we see girls here, they'll go in, now this is a pretty good foot race. They're just hit sticks, or you go, I don't want it, right? And that's not a lot of contact, but it's enough to control the stick and get a scoring chance. And again, can our players do that at younger, lower levels? Absolutely. So here, this is a great clip of Johnson. So just pulling the puck wide, lean in, drive skate. Nice save by McCullough. So we'll show that again, wide. So build the wall. So it goes puck, you, bad guy. I'll show a picture of that in a minute. Arm bar, outside edges, inside edges, C cuts. Okay, can all our players do that? Okay, first of all, we all want our players to be able to do that. And that is a missing skill in a lot of girls hockey, but that's where we want to get to. And then here's a clip of Dau against Finland, against a 6-footer. So building the wall. She has an escape route now, so she can go either way. She reads the pressure from the Finnish player and is able to spin off an attack. So she reads the stick, great acceleration, decent shot opportunity. So here, quick read. Now this is putting all the skills that we're going to start building the foundation together or in one clip. But so there's another Dartmouth alum, and we're not all bad. So there's Stacy. I love this picture. So this is one now I just added into the presentation, but this shows you exactly what we're trying to do. Puck, you, bad guy. And this is something this is one of the first things I show our players, right? We've got to be able to build that wall, right? To create separation. So again, is it going to be able to be done on the Olympic level right away? Absolutely not. But this concept they can all get. Even my 5-year-old gets that one. She tells me I'm the bad guy. So here's just basic leaning in. So here is just a basic practice plan that I've developed. So I did this with U9 House League all the way up to our junior team and everyone in between. So quite often I'll just take a practice plan and I look at it as like the alphabet, right? So if the around the circle C cuts is A, and this drill in the bottom right corner where they do a little turn back based on coach pressure, that might be G or H, right? Like depending on what we're teaching. So maybe those U9 House League kids don't get to this drill, this C cut around and shoot. The stick battles I don't have in here, but that's just a fun drill. So we're trying to get from A to Z, right? But everyone's got to start at drill 1 here on A. Like you'd be astonished how many high-level players can't put the puck on the outside and do C cuts. And then often we put a coach in the middle with their hands up, showing different numbers. And on the whistle, they change direction. They're not good at it. Now, are they high-level hockey players? Yes. Do they need work on the fundamentals? Absolutely. Okay, so the drills I'm going to show don't directly go through this progression, but I just want to give you an idea. I did this and coached them. So if you want me to share it, I can. So this is all on Instagram. All my good stuff's on Instagram. So just like, now these are older players. These are U15 to U22, but they struggled with this outside edge, right? So this player here is a junior player, so I'll pick on her. Outside edge here, right? Splitting the feet, leaning in. So I tell them they got to have their pants on the wall. This is a great way to teach initiating contact because your opponent's not going to fall over. The U9 kids have fun with this because they try to see how far they can lean and then fall over. But it's a great starting point, and you build that foundation. And again, she's on her forehand. This is easy. These two are on their backhand, and it's a little hard to see here. But you can see that they have some different challenges crossing their hands. This one, maybe getting their hands away. Like these are basic fundamentals. Now we don't spend a lot of time here with this age group, but with the U9s, we do spend a lot of time here. So real simple drill. They're just changing direction on the whistle. Now same thing with the puck. Okay, so again, with the little kids, I would have to show them how to dribble on their forehand and backhand side first before we get here. The older kids usually know how to do this. And then the final progression is we just have some instructors. Normally we'd have more instructors, but I was too busy videoing. And they're just calling out numbers. So just scanning and awareness. Again, really basic, but this is a good way to set a foundation. Even if it's a higher level group, just start here. Start here and reinforce the basics, right? And then every time you touch on initiate contact, build the wall, scan the ice, right? You've just dropped that seed in at the beginning of the practice for them to build off of, which I think is important. So again, a lot of them here, especially the U9s, as soon as you start this scanning, everything breaks down. They're not leaning into the wall. They can't stick handle anymore. They're not doing it, they're not turning on the whistle. Like it just turns into a disaster. So this used to be where I started back in the summer, but there's no wall here. So these kids struggle a little bit to get on their outside edge. But we would do this stationary, okay? And we could add more scanning. So these are U9 and U11, I think. Just trying to lean in, right? So they're trying to get, the key here is the straight leg with the straight stick. So some of them struggle with that. They want to bend the leg that's close to the stick. These players are a little bit younger. These are a little bit older, but this is the first time they've done it. So it's a bit of a yard sale, and that's fine. But just getting to lean in to initiate contact. So we would do this moving as well, maybe just around the ice as a warm-up. Again, you can use the instructors to hold up hands. So this might be a progression of the leaning in against the wall that we did before. Just simple stuff, nothing revolutionary. Now this one's a hit with the crew. So obviously there's not two pucks on the ice. They love to remind me of that. But now they're initiating contact against somebody else. So we don't see this exact type of contact a ton, right? Like that pure lateral contact. But this is a great way in a big group. You can easily have 30 kids doing this. And the instructors can, go around, fix hands, fix body position. So we stick our stick right in between their pants there to make sure there's no space. So that's one of the key cues. These players are both midget players, so they can be cued to get on their outside edges more, right? And then they're trying to do puck you, bad guy. So we want the puck out here, outside the feet as much as possible. You can see a bunch of them are looking down. Again, these are all new drills to them. So, there's a lot of room to work. And then they just spin around on the whistle and continue. It takes them a little longer than I would like. I like to move fast, but you get the idea here. Okay, so here's a progression. These are 7-year-olds. Pretty good. This one in green's pretty good. So this is spin it to win it, which is just a fun drill. We remind them to build the wall. So the only cue beyond, we start them in that initiating contact position. And then we ask them, we want you to maintain possession with as little skating as possible. So try to hold your ground, own your space. Don't skate away from the other girl. Like try to be rooted like a tree. So I'd say she does a pretty good job here, this green player. Right? So she's building the wall. The one in red's probably being a little nice. That's okay, right? But just pulling the puck away. Right? I'd like to see her push into the player a little bit more, but that requires a little more inside edge work. That's pretty good. Here's some bigger ones doing the same thing. So again, they try to do dance moves and stay away from each other. We actually want them to push back into each other, right? So you'd like to see this player in white get on her inside edges and actually push her butt into the player in black, right? But again, that takes a little bit more confidence in the drill. And this is still a pretty good starting point. It works really well to have like the half moon or the circle to keep them corralled in place if you don't want to put too much stuff down on the ice. So this is, the kids love the hitting pads, so we bring them out. And again, this is just a way to get them to initiate contact. Lateral contact like this, we don't see a ton in the female game, but it does help to initiate contact with that shoulder on drive skating. So you can say, I don't know if these players have ever done this before I filmed this. This might be their first crack at a drill like this. Okay. But, just trying to shift weight and lean in, not stand up. So hopefully it's slow down. So you see this player here, I think she's an A or double A player, but look what happens when she goes to initiate contact. And how often do we see this? Right? So she's going to initiate contact basically on one foot, standing up straight. If my instructor here wasn't as nice as she is, we could send this player flying. But really simple drill. All the players are lined up here off screen. We started this without the puck first, and you have it going out of both ends. So really good drill to run out of practice because you can have it going. Goalies are going to get warmed up. You can obviously change what skill we want the shooter to do as we go in. So that's kind of a leaning in progression. Now drive skating, right? Our ability to do what Johnson did in that clip. We progress to one hand off the stick, but you'll see kind of how we work on that outside edge, leaning in here, kind of more of a circular pattern. So these are the House League kids. So just doing C cuts around the circle.
Kim, Dave Barrett had his hand up.
Sorry, Dave. I can't see any hands right now, Wally. So if you can manage that for me, that'd be great. We can just hold it here. And yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to shoot.
So Kim, I didn't know if you wanted to go through the whole thing or you didn't mind being interrupted. So I just threw a hand up there.
I love talking, Dave. So
okay.
Do whatever. I'm good.
So you didn't answer my question then.
You can interrupt me. I have
right.
a 7, 5, and 4-year-old. I'm used to it.
So a couple things. One, do you ever do any of this off ice? Because there's a lot of these things that look like you could do leaning on the walls, a lot of balance drills. I'll know you're not on skates. Do you ever do any of it off ice with these drills?
Yep. Yeah, I totally do. And I would like to do more. Obviously in Toronto here, we've not had our all our ducks in a row, but Absolutely. You could see, yeah, a group like this would be a perfect example, right? You just line them up in the hallway with their skates on when they're dressed and just start with that, you know, just holding their stick like that. And then you've kind of eliminated that first drill, or at least lessen the amount of ice time you're wasting. I
Yeah.
always say Toronto ice time is like a large Starbucks a minute, right? So you
Yeah.
know how valuable it is. But yeah, we can definitely do a lot of this off the ice. You know, inevitably our coaches are going to teach it more on the ice. And I think it has an impact too when the parents see it. The parents love this. Oh my God, do they love this? They just feel like their daughters are just getting some secret code that they never had before. So there is a value from an instructor standpoint to showing this on the ice, because
Yeah.
it definitely does have a bit of a wow factor because their daughters are never taught this.
But like and like using your body to protect the puck or the ball is a common concept in soccer or basketball or hockey. And like my father was a soccer player, so he taught me this kind of stuff, and I appreciate in the women's game it might be a little bit unique. But I wondered also if you ever looked at soccer drills or basketball drills as opportunities to learn how to build that wall as you talk about, and use your body as a weapon offensively to protect the ball or the puck or whatever you're using.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't even play hockey till I was 13. I was a soccer and basketball player, so I think I had an innate ability to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are different ways that, you know, what this year we were hoping to instill the curriculum on a large scale, and of course that got curtailed a little bit. But I think that especially for our entire U9 and U11 age group from AA all the way down to House League is going to have a similar curriculum. So to your point, I can't deliver that on the ice with every single team. That would be almost 35 teams between those two levels. So we would, you know, we have to find more creative ways of doing it. So absolutely. And I also think, you know, some of our coaches at these levels who maybe aren't as experienced on the ice and might not be as comfortable on their outside edges might feel a lot more comfortable teaching it leaning against a wall or with a soccer ball or a basketball as well. So no, that's a great point. And, you know, definitely ways to see transference. Although it's interesting, sometimes I ask the girls, could you play soccer or basketball? And it's a bit disturbing how few hands go up sometimes, although I think they're also scared of me. So there's that. And they don't want to answer my questions. So that's fine too. Any other hands up, Wally? Sorry, I can't see it, but I'm afraid if I push a button, everything will burn down here.
Keep her going.
Keep her going. All right, more talking. So like I said, this is drive skating. We would start without the puck. And this is the first time these kids have done it, like literally their first rep. So this one who's coming around the corner here is not bad. The rest of them are struggling a bit, but you got to embrace the suck, as I like to say. So here's, again, a junior player doing it with the puck. We'd start without the puck. So just some drive skating. You can see she's pretty good on that outside edge. And here's a progression. Sorry, the video's not great on this one, but we're teaching here shin pad to stick. So let me go back here. And I didn't double up on these drills. So here, right, the puck is the bad guy here, right? So she's trying to build that wall. So as she goes through, she's pulling the puck as far away as possible and rebuilding that wall. So this player, as my orange jersey people are the ones who've done a lot of stuff with me, she's pretty good at this. So pulls the puck through, and then she's trying to create puck, bad guy here. A real simple drill. You could do this with 3 players and the 2 players can be the pylons. So that's kind of what we did here with the coach. So here we tell the players to go shin pad to stick, right? So we talk about controlling other people's sticks. You can do that when your butt is on their hands and also when you get shin pad to stick. And obviously she could drop her, well, maybe not on her forehand side, but on her backhand side, drop her hand to push away the stick, but just some planting of the seed of this idea with the players. So this again is, you know, if you have 30 players on the ice, this is pretty easy to do, although the Zamboni guys don't love it so much after. That's why we pay them the big bucks. So again, now we would go just drive skating around the circle. So here's the House League kids, just leaning in, right? Like that's dead simple, but again, how often have our players done that? And we don't need the hitting pads here. Again, the coaches kind of like having them too, you know, give your players a little love. Okay, but yeah, she could be better outside edge. She could pull that puck. But for a House League kid, that's not bad on the backhand. It's a good, you know, you got to start somewhere. The shot needs some work, but that's something else. Okay, so we got a AA kid. So there's that drive skate. right? She's just leaning in against the coach. This player's got great edges. So there's a younger kid. So same thing, drive skating, right? So she doesn't want to initiate contact, that one. She just wants to run away. This is typical in our game, right? So we see the first one. The player has to lean into the coach, but they don't want to. They want to kind of stay on the outside. So we tell them, you hit the coach doesn't hit you, as much as my coaches might want to hit them, just for fun. But again, they want to accept the outside and skate into the corner. So this takes a while for them to get used to. But that's the same drill as the House League kids did. So again, these are all U11 kids, I believe, maybe some U13s. Can add a little dangle or something before they shoot. So you can see you set this up in 4 corners. You can put 2 more stations in the middle of the ice. This one likes to initiate contact. And there's always a few in each group who love it. But again, these kids will all be playing A, double A, younger. This one's doing a good job of turning her shoulder. I think that's the 2nd or 3rd time she's done it. She's done a couple camps. But just give you an idea, like, again, these kids are all pretty good skaters, pretty decent hockey players. But even then, this is a concept that they're not super comfortable with. So here's the higher level kid again, initiate contact. So now there's just a little turn back. So we can do that where it's scripted. So this would be the scripted version where we tell her she's got to turn back, right? And, there's a main attacking area right here. So the defenseman takes the inside, she rolls back to the outside. We can also do it where it's unscripted. So my coach here would push more on one side than the other. So if she pushed her on the hash mark side, obviously that would accelerate the player here. If she pushed her on the high side, that would cue the player to roll off. So again, out of this group of 4, maybe this player here could read the push a little bit already and be able to understand how to spin off of it. The other 3 may not be there yet, so it might be something that we'd introduce, or we just meet them where they are, right? If this is E in the curriculum, this kid might be able to go to M, but this kid might need E. So you gotta switch it up as we go through. Push them where we can, and my instructors kind of understand how to do that. I think this might be the same clip. So just drive skate. That's a pretty good wall, right? And then make the read, and we can add all sorts of things after it to increase the skill. So let's see this might have a heel to heel. Yeah, so just another protect move. So just adding some different skating skills to it, right? And we would have already taught that heel to heel. So now she's making a read, right? So this coach is trying to keep up, just keeps pushing her, and then she turns away from contact. Not that she has to turn away from contact. She can obviously drive through it if she wants. So that's kind of the drive skating piece. Wally, I don't know if anyone has a hand up, or if we can, this is sort of my last, I guess, nugget here.
I have a question.
Go for it, Wally.
Watching this, you're teaching, you've broken it down brilliantly. There's progressions in there I've never thought of, all unique. I'm thinking the average coach might not be able to teach those points, but the kids would have to practice them in small area games. 1-on-1, 2-on-2, small area. You're just repeating that. And my concern is the degree of details that you, and I'm sure most of the people on here, have for the teaching aspect. Today's coaches, it's pretty complex for them. And I'm wondering, when you're not there, do they rely on small area games more, or deliberate teaching?
That's a great point. So when I'm not, so they're always on the ice with me. So there's, some teams I'm on with every week, and some, they say, hey, can you come do the physicality thing? And I come do the physicality thing. So I always encourage as many coaches learning with their players on the ice at the same time. It's not a night off to go and get a coffee. So that's the first point. Second point is that shared vocabulary is really critical. So as I'm teaching, we're talking about building the wall. We're talking about butt in the hands. We're talking about puck you, bad guy. And these players remember, especially the butt in the hands, they remember all this stuff. So even if the edge work isn't perfect, or that's the seed we really want to plant, is the words, because then the coach can come back and say, okay, we're going to work on initiating contact. What did Coach Kim say about building the wall? Now, this is girls hockey. Like when you ask, 5 hands go up, and you might not get the answer you want, but they are usually pretty engaged in this stuff. They want to show that they've learned. So we teach the vocabulary as well as the drills to support it, and then I leave them with the drill plan. So all our coaches are on the same Coach Them platform, so they have access to all the drills. I have videos of all the drills on there, and then anytime I run a practice plan with a team, I send it to them. Like, it's not really rocket science, so I send it to them. So then I say, okay, you have to repeat this exact practice 2 more times, right? So if it's a Monday, do it the next 2 Mondays. You know, the first time we do it, they're just learning. Second time, some of them might be able to really nail it down. Some are still learning. By the third time, most of them, they know the drills, they know the key concepts, the key vocabulary, and they're now being able to utilize it, manipulate it, use it as a tool to their advantage. So that would be how I help the coaches to cement some of these fundamental skills, right? We talked before, coaches want to just rush through it and be like, oh, we did it once. You know, we always think we touched on it once, so of course all the players remember, right? And clearly they don't. So, you know, that would be a fundamental sort of practice plan. This is probably 2 or 3 practice plans once we get through all of it. But that's how I would do it, and then I would have the video and the resources to support it. But that's, again, that vocabulary, and you'll see some drills here. So there's going to be more compete drills and small area games that are going to force them to initiate contact and build the wall, and then the coaches can keep throwing out those terms. And then I encourage them, like whether it's the Team Canada clips I showed earlier, or even video from their own games, right? Can you watch video from your own team and pick out examples of initiating contact or getting your butt in the hands, or right? So it's a lot more powerful when the girls see it doing them, or see it themselves doing it. So I hope that helps, but I'll show a couple compete drills here that are fun. And
just want to mention on the guys' side, observing practices and just being in the minor hockey listening group, coaches usually say, well, we've worked on that. And it's that one time we've worked on it, but they really haven't accomplished the purpose of whatever the working on it was. So that, I think what you're doing is brilliant if they can experiment with it and the idea of your 3 keywords and then physicality and what that means and the subwords that go into that, you get the picture from those subwords. And the biomechanics will fall in place quite naturally. So that's good. Continue. Go ahead.
Thanks, Wally. And just to piggyback on that, like all the teachings of it and like the videos I've done, like the whole curriculum of why we do this, like we have a whole website I created that feeds the coaches this information, right? So they can always refer back to it. It's not just a one and done sort of thing, but yeah, they have to hammer it home. And it's like the John Wooden quote, right? You haven't taught until they've learned. How do you know if they've learned? Well, I mean, you can ask them, and again, the girls will put up their hand, but until you can watch a video of a game or be standing on the bench and see them doing this, then they haven't really learned it, right? They're not using it as an offensive weapon. So that gives you your greatest feedback tool. Do I see our kids doing it? Are they missing opportunities to do it? And again, it might take 3 or 4 months. If it's a brand new skill like this, to many of them, it might take a while. But the hope is 3 to 5 years from now, every single player we have who's as old as these two in this picture will have learned it since they're 8 and are great at it. And then, I probably don't have a job anymore, but that's fine. All right, so start more drills like this in a pinned position. I alluded to this earlier when I saw the Sarah Nurse clip, right? The puck's here in Katie's feet, and that's okay. I'd like to see Katie's hand up the wall a little bit more. She's a pretty tall kid. But just this idea of being comfortable with the puck, not on your blade, and being able to build that wall, right? So, if this player starts to fish around it with her stick, you've already won. You just spin and go. Anyways, start more like this. I made them stand here for a long time. They didn't really love that. So here's the little kids, right? So just pinning this, this is a variation. So then they pinned on one side and they had to spin off of it and sprint to the blue. So these two, so here's the pin. She goes more on one side, pin, and then we add the puck. So again, like this, these are our youngest players, and start without the puck. This is a great drill, right? Get to the middle, get inside the dot line, right? Where all the good stuff happens. So here, right? Could she go heel to heel there and spin? Sure. There's a bunch of other skills she could use. So here's the old ladies doing it. So pushing off, right? And then I think she skates through the stick here. So they're just combining two initiating contact skills. And then she would pick up a puck from the other side and go in and shoot. Would be another way to do this. So get lots of reps. Same thing with the puck. So you could start tons of drills like this, right? Just do a single push. But again, shin pad to stick in a more linear fashion, right? So here's, to your point, Wally, some more basic drills to get them initiating contact. So this one I call the 2-go. It's not in the practice plan I showed. So the white player here is being pinned by the black player. So my coach over here is cueing them. So there's 2 goes. On the first go, the white player pushes her off her back, kind of like the drills you just saw. And then she does like what I call dance moves. And the reason we have her do that is just to get her comfortable handling the puck along the wall with someone on her back. So ideally, if she could push her off and just get to the net, we would love that. But the dance moves gives this player in black another opportunity to initiate contact and for white to make another read to spin off a bit. So you see here, these are both U13 minor players, first-year players. So she's doing the dance moves, then you hear the second go, and the player in white here does a great job, right? Spins off, and we see it again. So let's watch slow motion. So there's the initial push off. So this would be the first go. Okay. And, you know, there's a bunch of stuff to work on here, but she's just working in that space beneath the net. There's the second go. So the player in black does a good job of pinning. So she could spin right there, get to the net, but I guess she sees the stick, doesn't want to go that way. So here's the right way to go. Okay, just a really simple drill. They love it. And again, you know, you could have a goalie here. You could set it up a million different ways, but this is a really simple one that they seem to really enjoy. So same idea, just a slightly different spot. So here's the first go. There's the second go. The one in all black likes to hit people, which is fine. Okay, so again, spinning off pressure, building that wall, spinning off again, right? So, you know, that uses all the skills. There's the same 2 again. So build the wall. We're not working really on the defensive side of it, but we could obviously include that as well. So again, just, you know, initiate. I'd like to see her initiate a little earlier there, but that's okay. So again, just competitive. And then this is our 2-on-2 game. So they go in 1-on-1. Could easily have the goalies here. They go in 1-on-1, and whichever player touches it first, her team's on offense. And then she can add in a second player. So for the younger, less experienced players, we send 2 in right away, or 1 in right away like this, and then the second 2 engage right away. But these players, again, are, you know, AA players. So we're making them think a little bit more. So when I think the player in black touches the puck first, I think her partner's sleeping a little bit back here in line, but she can initiate adding another player. So she'll wake up eventually. There you go. So they have to score by doing a wraparound. So they can't just shoot it from out there. So then red gains control and the other red jumps in. So this one's a fan favorite. You know, like to see a little more contact. You can imagine we do this with the junior players in the same amount of space, right? So now they're, you know, the bodies are a lot bigger. I don't ever go above 2-on-2. I like it just as a 2-on-2 drill, because then no one's just a casual observer. So I'll just backtrack again, and then I'll stop talking and turn this stuff off. So again, they're going to have to initiate contact there. So you get a little bit of that skill, and then add them in, and then fight for that possession. And then we go 2-on-2 live. So this gets pretty competitive, especially if you add the goalies in. And then they have to score on the wraparound. That one's pretty simple. And then you guys already know where to find me, so I guess we don't need that part. That's all my blabbing. Sorry, guys. I talked for a long time. Sorry, Wally. I don't think you were expecting all of that, but you got it anyways. You're welcome. I'm going to stop sharing. There you go, Wally. I'm done.
Thanks very much, Kim. I guess I got a question. I've worked with a few coaches over many years, and Jordan, you work with a midget double A team. How much of this would you be able to apply moving forward with your teams at selective times? That saying of right stuff, right amount, right time. You're coaching a team competing in a league at a different level, and these little tactical skills are critical. So I'm just curious for all people that are still actively coaching, but Jordan in particular, knowing your double A girls, how would you apply some of those things in your practice? Jordan, are you there? Okay, I'm going to ask Carla if is this something you would do on a skills only day, or is this something you do, some of these kinds of things, or you may be a person who would let them compete in small area games more and reinforce teaching points? Carla?
Yeah, thanks, Wally. Thanks, Kim. It was really good. No, I think, Wally, there's a time and place for all of it. And at the end of the day, when doing the small area games and the combative stuff, as Kim was showing, like, I just see a real natural feel. It allows you to just to teach both sides of the games and so many more of your opportunities that you do. So I think of a natural angling drill. Well, this engagement piece that she's teaching us and showing us here today, that's what the offensive puck carrier can be working on. So now you can work both sides of your drill consistently. So no, I really appreciate sort of the process that you take, Kim, and the detail at which you're teaching and the progressions that you have too, that Wally alluded to. So I think all this stuff applies at every level. Like, again, she's showing the national team clips and they're working on that stuff too. So, I think Kim stated often, like, to the level of our players, what do we need and how do we need it? So, I start drills a lot that way too, Kim. I've done it a little bit more from the defensive side at times. So I was like, okay, well, I'll engage the offensive side now. So, that got me thinking. So I think there's endless value as long as you've got a plan and a purpose. I think athletes grow, and that's what exactly I saw in that presentation was a purposeful presentation, that depending on where our groups are, we can kind of pick a starting point and help them grow. So, I always naturally lean a little bit more to I would actually grow just like Kim showed. I would naturally do sort of a strategic skill-based drill at some point in the practice leading up to a small area game where we'd emphasize the same tactics. So I think I thought it was great. Really enjoyed it. And I would absolutely steal some of it, and I will. So thanks for that, Kim.
Yeah, I'm curious about Al Ramsey because he's working at younger age levels. Al, are you still with us? No response. Okay. Dave, it's been a while since you've been on the ice, but the challenge of applying the details of this to minor hockey players, but guys in particular, I think the girls feed off detail. They get the purpose of what you're doing. And I'm just wondering whether guys, and that's where if Al was on, I'd sure love to hear him speak to it, to what degree would this become boring for guys, or would they eat the deliberate practice up and benefit from it? Al, I see you're available.
Yeah, sorry, Wally, just took my mute a few minutes there to catch up. But no, I thought the presentation was amazing. I thought she did a really good job of breaking the skills down. Really loved the teaching points, and obviously the small area game. So I mean, from my side, this is something that's not female specific, right? I mean, this is extremely useful on the male side as well, and it's we're doing a lot of similar stuff with the kids. I mean, body contact has to be started from 6U, 8U, right, for the guys. Because by the time they get to 14U, if they try to do a 3-day check-in clinic, which is what they try to push on the kids here, it's too late, right? Like they've got to be learning this stuff starting from a really young age, like Kim said about teaching the house league kids. We do the same thing with ours here. So I think it's really great stuff. I'm going to steal a little bit of it too, Kim, and really appreciate the presentation today.
Kim, I just want to mention, before you were born, I was a part of the Hockey Canada group developing a checking progression, and one of the first progressions was called contact confidence. And players, one on each side of the blue line, but elbows joined, were leaning on each other. They had 3 strides, contact, 3 strides, contact, elbows joined. And then they would go with no elbow contact. One would be the contactor, one could be the receiver, but that's what we were doing back in the day. But this was just contact confidence. They feel comfortable with it. And I noticed in some of the girls were a little shyer than others. And I think young boys, it's the same thing. There are some that are overly aggressive. And Al, I'm sure you've done the Gauntlet Drill in the past, which I think you might be going to court for if you did it again. But I find it's a great drill done in with young boys, where there's separation and the players are staggered as a player skates through the gauntlet, initiating contact with the stationary people, and then coming down the boards and trying to get through everybody really cracking you. But the practical value of that is just psychologically coping with contact, overcoming fear. And I think the game is changing on the guy's side, where stick on puck, body position, and awareness of what's available and doing things to create more availability of options. The game is just changing enormously. So, Kim, the Hockey Canada skills presentation, I shared Daryl's talk with Hockey Alberta, and an excellent one, but the one following it by Riley is another example, I think, of you young people are taking things to another level. So kudos to you. Now, I don't know.
Wally, do you mind if I just want to thank you for that, by the way. You guys are very kind. And as you can tell, I'm got to use my Ivy League skills somewhere. So this is getting a little nerdy on my end. But I agree with you completely. It is confidence. And I think in girls hockey, like if I could just inject everyone with confidence and give them no more skill, the level of female hockey would go up exponentially, right? Like so much of it is them just having more confidence and feeling like they have a tool. The nice thing about this is they feel like they have a tool that other people don't have, right? It's like a little bit of a secret sauce now that everyone's going to steal my stuff. Like, I don't care. It's all on my Instagram. You can have it all. But, when they go in and do it, it's funny because I see the girls do it in a game and they put their butt in their hands. They push off someone on the wall and the other player like flies across the ice. Like because she's not expecting to be pushed when the other girl has the puck. And like that alone is worth its weight in gold, right? Just watch that other player fly off and you get a free pass to the net. That's all they need. They just need that one instance of initiating contact and gaining space. And that's all it takes to get them to use it. And to your point, the ones who are slightly more aggressive or overly aggressive, and we have those in the female game too, right? Teaching them how to do it strategically to be able to spin off, right? If you're that aggressive and you can create a huge escape route for yourself, I mean, now you're just offensively, you're driving the bus, right? The little ones may not be able to get themselves as big of an escape route. So, you hear it from both sides, the ones who are less confident and the ones who maybe don't know how to use their superpowers in the right way, and being able to give them a little bit more direction. Because again, you can teach them how to initiate contact, how to build the wall, how to build an escape route. But then what do? Like you have to do something with it. You have to make a decision as a result of that, right? So this is a little more of the fundamental skill, but then we're constantly infusing, okay, what side does that girl stick on? When she pins you, then you look over your shoulder. If her stick's over there, don't go that way. Like that, again, it's pretty low-hanging fruit. But that's how we start to teach hockey IQ and layer it in with the skill. You're on mute, Wally.
Dave Barrett and Al Ramsey. So Dave, would you go first?
Hey, thanks. Kim, that was awesome. Love the progressions. I actually don't usually think of it from the offensive side. I think of it from the defensive side. So 3 quick points. One, and I think Mike Weaver can attest to this, that the way you play defensively in those situations has evolved tremendously over time. We used to use can openers and a lot of clutch and grab, and that's kind of gone away now. And you got to move your feet and be a little bit more smart about how you're utilizing your stick. Whereas I think the offensive kind of concepts that you brought forward are more timeless. And I think what were used many years ago, and maybe you're thinking about it, it's progressed, but kind of the skills have maintained the same. 2, when I used this with our university girls, we were introducing a lot more physicality into our game. They used to start giggling when we did drills because they weren't used to the contact that we were introducing to them. And then they got more and more comfortable with it over time. Their kind of level of grit in their game and sandpaper in their game was exponentially growing because they really had never been exposed to the type of thinking you're doing. And 3, to Wally's kind of identity and purpose kind of conversations that you have more at a mission statement level, I think this feeds perfectly into it. If your team is desiring to be, a more competitive, physical type of team, you start to build these drills into it and reinforce that culture that your group is aspiring to be like. And I know on our team, that's certainly something that we did every day in practice to reinforce the identity of our team, not only during games, but during practices, and it just built into it. And I think on the offensive side, Kim, what you're showing from a physicality perspective, I think is outstanding. So it's great. Thank you so much for that.
Al?
Yeah, I was going to say, Wally, one of the nuances that I really, really loved about the presentation was the different looks in the small area games and the one-on-ones from different starting positions in the drill. Like starting from the pin and starting from a 50-50 race fairly close to the boards, coming down the wall, coming out of the corner. Like I just love the way that you could manipulate the types of contact and the types of how they're going to deal with that contact just by changing sort of the scenario, right, for essentially the same drill, like a one-on-one. So I thought that was really good, Kim.
Well, and there's like, as it evolves, right? Like every puck retrieval, like a lot of puck retrievals have this, right? Like I think about Cribber and you're teaching the D how to do a regroup, but inevitably they have to retrieve the puck first and make a read and scan the ice and is there somebody chasing them? Do they have to win the lane before they even get there? All these, it applies in so many different areas. And the contact against the wall, it seems to be the area that has the most immediate positive feedback from the coaches and the parents because they feel like their players are safer, whether they have or don't have the puck. And I do teach it from the defensive side, but I've kind of, at least in my business, I try to teach things that A, maybe a lot of other people aren't teaching, and B, kind of things that separate you from everybody else. So like if not a lot of other girls are doing this and you're great at it, it's going to make you stand out. So that's kind of the way I approached it from the total female hockey side of things, maybe less so from when I'm wearing my Lee side hat. But the parents just, they just are like over the moon about this, and the coaches as well. And it comes down to safety and concussions in the female game. It's still a huge problem, right? So even if it's just contact confidence, when you have the puck, it's going to transfer over if you're comfortable leaning in and getting on that outside edge and not being up so tall. So that's not necessarily the sell when I'm speaking to the players. Like you're going to get hurt less, but we are seeing that that is happening, and there's less sword fight and chicken fight going in for a puck along the wall because they understand how to win the lane and initiate contact safely. So that's a very important bonus of all of this over and above driving offense.
Mike Weaver.
Hey guys. Well, yeah, sorry I haven't been on in the last couple of weeks. I've been very, very busy. But I'm glad I actually was on this one. Kim, that was what I saw. I only saw the second part of it, but it was it was awesome. I really liked those that game at the end too was pretty cool. For the wraparounds too. One of the things I would say with hitting, I think that they ended up going, I don't know if you guys have touched on it. They ended up going too old for these kids. They moved it up to Bantam, which I think that they are too big and too strong, too many different heights. And if it was still at the major Pee-wee, that's kind of you're a little bit more Gumby around that age compared to getting into the Bantam ages. So that would be kind of my thing. And then when Kim was talking about obviously understanding coming into the hit of where the stick is, because a lot of kids are just going for the hit rather than coming in with a plan. And if you're able to come in with a plan and your objective is not to murder the person, your objective is to separate the man from the body and understand that, having respect for the game and the respect for your opponents is huge in this game. And sure, it's great to have a big hit and everything, but the outcome should be to get that puck. So that would be kind of my thing. And yeah, I ran a hitting clinic for the Toronto Titans a couple weeks ago, and yeah, it was kind of amazing going back and kind of paying attention to kind of how I ended up following through with hits. And a lot of people, one thing that I've really took away from watching my hits and kind of going through the motions and was basically, instead of ending, a lot of people end the hit at the body. And the one thing that I ended up ending the hit 3 feet behind. It's all about that explosion. So if you're exploding to hit the guy and end your hit at the guy, you're not going to get as a big of an explosion if you're trying to hit him 3 feet back. So that would be kind of my thing in the whole kind of explosion. I ended up going and hammering 6'5" guys. I'm 5'9", so there's a reason why I was doing it, and it's basically it's being compact and it's being able to explode at the right time and being able to follow through and to, like I said, to go and hit them to and through them.
Mike, I want to intervene. I don't mean to be a devil's advocate, but I'm going to be. Having been in the female game a long time and watching the NHL game, I don't think there's any hitting. The word hitting implies intimidation. So I've always felt that officiating and coaches have to consider the degree of force and the intention. So at all our checking clinics, the puck and possession precedes the physicality, but it's a part of it. And back in the day when we were asked to prepare a video in the late 70s and early 80s for respect in sport, hitting was causing insurance rates to go up. So on the female side, there is no hitting, body contact. And you know what? I watched the male game, and there is a really respectful degree of physicality. They're not running each other. And I would like to take the term hitting out. And when I do checking clinics for Hockey Canada and Hockey Alberta, I think body checking has gone the way of the dodo bird because you take yourself out of position. They're so quick, so skilled, agile, ability to change directions and sense actually set you up for an escape. The game is changing. It's really changing. So I think the mindset of guys and guys hockey, it's something that inhibits their development in terms of their awareness, their consciousness, overcoming the fear of being hit. And I'm curious, Dominic, you're on. You coach in the AHL, you played pro, you're coaching a prep team, a guys team, and girls teams. Do you have any comments on the physicality aspect with your guys and the girls and what I've said?
Yeah, no, my perspective is maybe a little bit different from the standpoint. I played half of my career in North America and then went over to Europe and played. And, just the definition at the time was a little bit different from, in the American League till going over there in such that, we would finish your hit. Someone would move the puck and you would finish your hit. And, it was a bit of a joke amongst the import players is like guys were never ready to receive a hit. And so the yard sale every time you hit them and you're just like, you're just like, oh, I'm going to blow this guy up. But, on the other side of it was, just the way they officiated it. And at the time we were, initially we were like, well, this is a joke. Like I was in Switzerland. You're just like, oh, these guys don't know how to play and yada, yada, yada. And then we went and played like against the Swedes, and we went and played against the, whether it was the Czechs and or the Russians, and like there'd be teams that we'd play against, and they were going to the tough areas, but they weren't necessarily like finishing checks per se. But we didn't puck, we were, and we had some pretty good players that were playing, and it was like it had to be like a change of mindset for us to be able to kind of compete at that level. And now that was 10 years ago or whatever else have you. And now fast forward to like the American League and the way that we would teach there as well, and you would see like you would have guys that would try to run around or try to like be physical and finish checks, and it just doesn't really translate, especially you go to the next level and it seems like you're like, oh, there's no checking. It's like guys are so smart and so fast to be able to draw guys in, to be able to, so you don't really want to take yourself out of position. And we would talk about keeping your edges and staying on your edges to be able to beat guys back up the ice. And Mike, I'm sure you played longer than I have, but it was like it's all about beating that guy back up the ice. And it's like to be able to keep your edges and to be able to you want a pressure to get him to move it, but to be able to kind of skate through. And that was the thing, like we literally were instructing guys not to quote unquote finish hits, but to be able to, you've got stick on puck and stepping through, but to be able to just basically just constantly keeping, there's almost like a penalty kill back. I remember watching, back in the day, you have guys that were really good in the penalty kill, and they were always, keeping their movement. But that's kind of the philosophy of 5-on-5 now, is you're not coming on a straight line trying to decapitate somebody. Now, there's the odd guy for sure that there's that element. You think of, certain guys that are able to do that, but I would say overall, from my side of things, it's about keeping edges and keeping, being able to keep pushing, guys to the outside. And if you're just going straight and just trying to make contact for the sake thereof, it's almost like you're putting yourself out of the play. And so, from my side of things, I agree with Kim. Found it very interesting just talking about the initiating contact from my side. That's, the biggest thing. They always like they're the one, they can all skate well, but they're always like trying to get away from it and not want to have that, initiate that contact, you say. So I thought, some of those drills, I'm definitely going to be using those with, some of the girls I have. But from my side, it's just been such a shift and a change, on the men's side, especially, and just a quick story, just as far. So I coach high school age kids, and we were playing in this state championship down in Southern California, and the ref came up to me and said, "Hey, we're going to let them play today." And in my head, I was thinking, what the hell does that even mean? Like, that just means you're going to forget to call the rule book. And so sure enough, we were a top ranked, we were the first seed or one of the top seeds, and this team had barely gotten in. But like the late hits, the like no play, like hitting when there was no play on the puck. And so now all of a sudden my players are like what's going on? Like, we haven't played this way the whole year. And I think there's initiative here in the States, it's maybe like a fair play initiative. I'm not sure if that's exactly the term, where it has to be like a play on the puck, has to be stick on puck, and if the puck leaves and there's contact made, then it's the penalty. And so it was almost like it was a close game. I think we beat them. I don't even know, over the course of the year. I don't think it was less than 3 goals. And now it was like went to overtime because our players were literally like, it was just a totally different game. And then we got, to the final, and they said, hey, I guess, the powers that be came in and just said, like, we need to call it the way that this USA Hockey Initiative is, as far as, stick on puck and whatever else have you. And the game was, again, totally different, because now players, weren't afraid of getting railroaded 2 seconds after the puck left, and they were actually making plays with the puck and everything else. So just my 2 cents, but yeah, it's definitely interesting topic.
We've got a few hands up. I'm going to sort of the order. I'd like Mike to respond first, and then I think we have Al and Dave with their hands up. So Mike, please.
Yeah, like obviously there's obviously when I was saying hitting, I wasn't obviously I should change it to checking or finishing the body type thing. Obviously, when I was explaining about going to and through the guy, it's you never want to go and put yourself in a position that you're going for obviously puck first, then body second, and that's how it should be. But there are, I'm going to say, why haven't the Leafs done well in playoffs? It's because they're a regular season. Well, like, first of all, I want to say that Toronto Maple Leaf fans, I call them next year fans. They'll be good next year. But because they're built as a regular season team. They're not built as a playoff team. With every single round, obviously with playoffs has a different energy. It has a different mindset. And I used to get chills going into the rinks the first game day of the playoffs. It was insane. Different beast. And even in youth hockey, you could see the kids, like, it's a different animal when you go in there. But it's tough. That's one of the toughest things. There's way more hits in playoffs, and there's way more battles, and it's way more intense. So it's a different mindset. Obviously, hitting's in playoffs, it's going to be a lot more of body checking and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wanted, my main point of this was I just didn't, it's finishing the check first, finishing the check to get the rule change in the NHL playoffs. Who said that?
I did. You're absolutely right. Teams are preparing to qualify in the NHL, and the rules change in the playoffs. It's not the same game.
Well, they let it go. They let it go. Like
Yep.
Obviously, like, and I've seen it actually in playoffs in youth hockey right now. I've seen refs understanding that with every single call they make, it's magnified that much more in the playoffs. So I've been to multiple games, and through the GTHL, through OMHA, I've been to a whole bunch of playoff games, and the refs kind of don't call as much. So yeah, they don't. To be honest, that's the way it should be. As long as anybody's not getting harmed, and they're playing it safe. Yeah, for sure. I think that's what makes our game amazing, and that's why the Stanley Cup is the toughest cup in the world to win.
Well, I'm really curious, because this was a presentation on physicality in the female game, and I've always said the game is looking more and more like the female game, and I'm saying that in a positive way. It's hockey. It's a good thing. Mm-hmm. That degree of physicality and contact, it's a guy thing. And I have no issues with it. but I wasn't one of those kind of players who would intimidate, and I probably wouldn't get through around to the playoffs, let alone get to them. But I think the idea here is we're worried about the nature of the game and the evolution of the game in terms of the health and welfare and respect young players have when they play it. And the role modeling that we want to emulate with our young players and how to teach them, I think it's changed. The USA hockey rules, if you don't go stick on puck primarily, you'll be given a penalty. That's on the guy's side. So the reason for that, just as it was in the late 70s when we did the Respect in Sport clinic, which had a chapter on playing the danger zone and respect, protecting puck, and taking hits and checks and keeping your feet moving. What we were doing then is what I think we're doing now. And it's not just Kim's presentation with girls only. I've watched a couple other presentations, and Daryl Belfry in particular. Their minds, the offensive players' minds, are operating at a different speed than the players with the defensive orientation in their head first. Like, they don't teach defense first anymore. It's offense first. And I agree with that totally. So, Al Ramsey.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Dominic was talking about. You know, with respect to the USA hockey program, I mean, I think the way that they're defining it now is like they've tried to clarify body contact versus body checking, and body checking being stick on puck, shoulder to shoulder, no finishing checks after the puck is left. You know, not trying to blow a guy up with your stick in the air, that kind of thing. It has to be a play on the puck, and the body contact is not that far off when they talk about body contact. Like what I see go on in our Atom games, or you know, here they call them squirts, is not that different than the types of contact, like 90% of the contact that you see in like an NCAA game. You know, they're still protecting the puck with their body. They're still initiating contact. They can still play through the hands of the kids. They can still, you know, go shoulder to shoulder, as long as they're not like intentionally trying to, you know, blow the kid up. They'll let most of that go, right? So that's why it's, and they're, when we give the level 1 and 2 and 3 CEP presentations and stuff for the coaching education, we're talking about that type of stuff starting as young as U6. Like whenever the kids start, that should be initiated, right? So we put them into one-on-one situations like Kim was showing, you know, where they've got to be able to protect the puck and they've got to be able to, you know, play through a kid's hands or whatever. So I think that's where they're trying to go, and that's why, you know, the stuff that Kim was showing I thought was fantastic for youth hockey. I think you're on mute, Wally.
Dave Barrett.
Hey guys, since I hope we're talking about the women's game still a little bit. I like to look at it as when I finished playing college hockey in the late '80s, I went into a really good men's league, and there was a lot of rubbing out, and certainly a lot of containment, angling, body contact in front of the nets, but there was no open ice checking. Nobody got finished into the wall. But all of the players were all ex-pros and ex-college players and knew how to play the game, knew how to use their bodies, but didn't open ice hit anybody. In the playoffs, it still was physical hockey, but nothing with hitting per se. And when I look at, I think where the women's game is evolving to and what Kim is advocating for here is just being much more appreciative of how you can use your physicality both on offense and defense without actually hitting people. And I look at the game, certainly when I coached women's hockey, was about letting them appreciate that the contact in the game can be done in a productive manner, in a safe manner, without losing defensive positioning if you're on the defensive side, and on the offensive side, just getting comfortable with being physical in your play without having the open ice hitting. And, you know, when I thought about it, I always thought about like how I played when I was 27 in a men's league. Not how I play now that I'm 59 in a men's league. If I bump into someone, it hurts too much. But, you know, there's some body contact that goes on out there. It's just not open ice hitting.
Okay, I'm going to ask a few other people who are listening. Sammy, your thoughts on the discussion?
Well, I love the presentation. Obviously, lots of skills to be learned. What I guess my biggest concern is because I don't coach a team, I coach at camps. So I'm hiring instructors for that week or for a couple weeks, and how to preemptively teach them these skills. So Kim gave some great ideas of, when she was talking, and I just was thinking with the Zoom culture now, this is something that I could go over the drills with my instructors before I get to that city. Sort of have a meet and greet with the instructors and sort of pass over some expectations, but also get some ideas from them as to how they learned or how they taught these things. So yeah, not having the ability to be around the instructors. We run 2 ice surfaces at the same time, so you're kind of reliant on them being able to teach. But I don't know if, Kim, you have any more suggestions for that, and what to do preemptively prior to a camp setting.
That's a great point, and something that I'm going to have to navigate too. We're starting a program here in the spring that's got 320 of our Leaside kids in it, and I'm not going to be on the ice for most of it. So we're trying to cement some fundamental skills in everybody, the coaches and the players alike. So I will be working through that challenge in the next couple of weeks, Sammy, because I've not.
Perfect. I don't need it till July.
Okay,
July and August. So you let me know how it goes. I will use what you best practice.
I will have recorded it and I will share it with you.
Perfect. I love it. That's why I love this group.
But basically, I would have the practice plan and send it out, and then in Mike's platform, you can actually embed videos inside the drill plan. So you can actually have the drill and then like click a little camera and it shows your video of the drill, as well as the little picture. So that's kind of cool, but again, pretty nerdy. So that would be the way that I would do it. And then like most drill drawing, you would have the key points. So whether it's initiating contact or all of that, but yeah, probably just going through the drills similar to the way I did would be the way to do it. And then, you depending on what your instructor setup is, right? I tend to have a lead person who is not necessarily the head instructor, but kind of, the coordinator, or they're sort of there to like make sure the drills are running right and like make sure, as opposed to physically running the drill. So
right, they're like making sure the timing is on, making sure everybody's doing that.
Yeah. So usually that's me. Usually I'm the floater. Yeah. But that's the person who really like needs to get it. And I don't know if I've talked about this before, but often I would have everybody running the same drill at the same time. So what that allows is if you
did talk about that a couple of weeks ago, and I really love that idea. Mostly not for the kids, but mostly for the boredom of the instructor. You're running 4 ice sessions in a row, and if you have to do a station 3 times, you're then explaining it 12 times. That is always the toughest thing, right? And so if they're doing it together, I love that idea, mostly for the engagement of the instructor.
But it also makes it easier for you if you're trying to get these instructors up to speed that are not, physically where you are. I mean, really, you just have to make sure the lead dog knows what they're saying, right?
And then I have some great leaders like Janelle Kohanchak or Jocelyn LaRock or Bridget Lacroix. Like people can certainly run it, the top ones, but my worry is the other ones. So I love that idea of them teaching them at the same time, teaching the instructors.
Yeah, it's worked out really well for me. Like, and sometimes some of my junior instructors are junior players or midget AA players. Like they're not even necessarily people who have a lot of instructing experience. And again, you've got the floater, who goes around and says, oh, actually make sure they do it like this with their hands. So they kind of fix it as it goes along. But that's an easy way to do it where it doesn't rely on everyone being an expert on their own drill, right? You just need one expert and you just run them through the progression. Again, it depends how you want to run it. If you're running 6 different skills all at the same time, maybe this doesn't work. But if you want to run a physicality thing that takes them from A to F, this format works a lot better. That's just the way I teach now. I don't teach like all different skills at the same time. But yeah, you can steal all my stuff, Sammy. It's fine.
Okay, thank you. I love
No
it.
problem.
I would like Hal Turst to comment. Hal, like myself, has been around a long time and been through everything we're talking about. I'm sure has run hockey schools and was concerned about staffs that he might have been overseeing. But Al, just anything to add relative to Kim's talk and the feedback of everybody, the guys' game versus the girls' game, and the sort of dovetailing of it coming together now. Go ahead, Al.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed this session. Kim, you just do such a great job, not only of with some of the language. I always think coaches have a special language with their players. So you only have to say a word or two and they know exactly what you mean. And boys, we probably wouldn't tell boys to put their butt in the hands, but maybe we would. And so yeah, this is all just really, really great stuff. I think you guys are way ahead of us in some of these areas. And a little bit because we're so decentralized on how we operate here in Minnesota. So, I put on there on the comments that the rule book for the playoffs is every page is left intentionally blank. And, but I have been watching quite a bit. The Wild's got a pretty good hockey team, and referees are actually doing a really great job. And I don't think we could say that, in the past decades. If any of you are referees, I apologize. But I also know that referees call the game the way the league wants it called. And apparently they're investing so much money in these players that they don't want them injured if they can help it, because it costs everybody a lot of money. If Kaprizov gets hurt, he sells tickets in every building in the National Hockey League, as well as the Penguin guys and some of the top premier players. So I think the whole game is going in such a great direction, boys, men's and women's. And I just hope that I hope the women's game can continue to grow and not be a second class sport to the boys. It's going to take a while, but I think the work that you all are doing up there is going to have a big impact on the game. So that's it. I just am happy to listen here today, and Kim, I took a lot of notes, and you and I will talk again, I hope, and you can help me with some of this stuff this winter. So it'd be great.
Anybody else got any thoughts or anything else to share in terms of what we've talked about? One of the concerns I've had is that the mindset of guys and guys hockey and guys and girls hockey is different. Like, I'm a guy in girls hockey. Now, Dominic, you've been thrust into both the male and the female game, and you have daughters. So that has always intrigued me, and I think what's happening is the game is changing to respect skill more than ever. And the best players, the players that people buy tickets for, are the smaller players who are more agile, quicker thinking, and execution on the ice. And I think that's more enjoyable. So, Hal, do you have another comment? I saw Hal had his hand up there.
Yeah. So I don't know if I mentioned this before, but one of, for me, coaching boys for so long at so many different levels, and now coaching girls, is the locker room was so important in building relationships with players and creating team culture. And, in coaching girls, I can't go in the locker room. And I'm actually interviewing for a job tomorrow. And, coaching a girls' high school team. But I'm going to tell them if I get it, I need a female coach. It doesn't have to be a hockey coach, but I think it's important to have an adult in the locker room with 15, 16, 17-year-old girls and boys. But I'd like to hear from some of you who have more experience in the girls' game, if it is all that important, or maybe it's not. I don't know. So I will actually now listen.
Wally,
you're muted.
You're on mute, Wally.
Dave, and then Sammy.
Hey, Hal, I coached university women's hockey for 2 years. The way I navigated that problem was, number one, I established time periods before and after games and practices where the dressing room was as much my domain as the player's domain, and respected that, so that they knew, hypothetically, 15 minutes before warm up that I might come in the room. So they had to be prepared for that. And vice versa, 15 minutes after the game, I had to leave the room so that it was their domain, not mine. Some of that I would do with the men's team too. And then my second year, I purposefully hired a woman named Kelly Patton, who I think is a great coach, and she was much more in the room than I was and could help kind of moderate what was going on, or at least observe. But in the first year, it was challenging, and I really had to lean on my leadership team from my player group to kind of give me the vibe of the room. But as far as not being able to go in the room, that was not the case. I established that right off the bat that wasn't going to happen. I had to have access to the dressing room, and I think you can do the same.
Yeah, I mean, we did similar last year, but when I was coaching boys hockey for 15 years, I was in and out of there all the time because, you've got kids of a variety of ages, and we had kids from, it was a private school, so we had kids from different communities, and they created cliques, and there was stuff going on. Even as much as I was in and out of there, there's stuff that goes on that's a little corrosive. Yep. And then in the girls' game, at least here in Minnesota, we've got girls as young as 13 and girls as old as 18, all in the same locker room. So I know the conversations of the older girls are probably not what the parents want the younger girls to be part of. I don't know that, but I hear it. I've heard about it. And so that's why I want to hire somebody who, she could be a soccer coach. I don't care. She just needs to be in the locker room.
Yeah, I know in my second year, Hal, I had a bully on my team, a new player that came in and started bullying some of the other girls. And these are women in their 20s. A lot harder to take care of when you're not in there as you would be normally. But you still have to have your finger on the pulse of that. It is challenging, but you can set up some parameters and plan around it a little bit more.
Cool.
Sammy.
Hal, it's great that you're even thinking about it. So that's awesome. I actually didn't have the opportunity to play women's hockey until I was older. So don't necessarily know the younger aspect from the dressing room, except for having coached it. But to me, it's kind of weird to have somebody in the dressing room, because we never had people in the dressing room, except for like what Dave mentioned, where it was time constraint. So we would have 20 minutes to get dressed. And Ken Dufton, who was on previously, was my coach for a long time, and he always had rules that he established. So your undergarments needed to be hidden away. He didn't want to walk in the dressing room and see all like lined with bras on both sides, kind of thing. So some awkward conversations that you might need to have initially. But what I've always seen at the younger levels in this area is a team mom versus a coach. So a team mom doesn't necessarily mean they need to be a mother on the team, but they are the ones that are in the dressing room. They don't need to have any hockey knowledge. So that also gives you a bigger parameter to hire from, right? So, but also establishing that culture within your dressing room that you do have some older players that they can also start to establish that leadership too. And if they're 17-year-old girls, they're pretty much adult women. So you can explain to them they have 13-year-olds on the team and these are not appropriate. And can you guys sort of self-monitor that a little bit? So that can start to be established too. But I played boys hockey all the way up, and yeah, male coaches were just in and out, in and out, and in and out. But when I joined the Olympic team, that was never the case. I mean, even the female coaches don't come in the dressing room in women's hockey. And when we do media too, we always went out of the dressing room. So whenever there was a conversation to be had, whether one-on-one with a coach or media or anything like that, they are asking you to come out of the dressing room. So that was sort of more normalized, I think. And you've probably seen that within your local area. Yeah. But Kim did grow up playing girls hockey at a younger level, so she might know more a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in Hockey Canada, of course, you've got the 2 deep rule. And so that's sort of guides a bit of our behaviors in the dressing rooms. But to Sammy's point, for a lot of our teams, that's a team mom who may be a coach or maybe the trainer or maybe the manager. So they're like either in the room or right outside the room, depending on how the dressing rooms are designed. But I think, the point that we've kind of hit on that's most important is the culture of the team. And I coached junior a long time, and I had 14-year-olds in there with 20-year-olds. And you just have to establish with the whole group, but reinforced by your leadership group, that certain things are not to be talked about, in the dressing room. Obviously the 20-year-olds are going to have different life experiences typically than the 14-year-olds. But I have heard, this year, quite a few instances of from house league all the way up to our top level of those types of conversations happening and players feeling really uncomfortable. And I don't want those conversations to happen, but I am heartened by the fact that players are saying something, that it's making them uncomfortable, where I think maybe in years past, they wouldn't have said anything. They would have just been like, this is just what happened. Now, not when I say they say something, they're not saying Sally said this, and it's more like they felt uncomfortable and they were hopeful that someone would address it or talk about it. And I've had a couple conversations with teams about that. Tom was talking earlier about social media stuff and other things that happen with the girls. But ultimately, when I do have those conversations with teams, it comes back to the culture you've established at the beginning and what is acceptable and what is not. And if you set those, scenarios in play, like someone's going to talk about something that they probably shouldn't be talking about in the dressing room. That is for sure going to happen. Like 1,000% is going to happen during your season. So I always say, like, cut it off at the pass. Talk about it in September or August or whenever you get together, April. Be like, listen, something gross and icky is going to happen. Here are the 5 things that are most likely to happen. You've coached for a long time, Hal, so someone's going to say something to someone on social media. Someone's going to be jealous about something. Someone's going to do something stupid in a game that we all are, whatever. Just troubleshoot that. I used to split the team into 4 groups, and I'd put the 4 scenarios around the room, and they would go with their little group and say, okay, here's the scenario. What are we going to do? If this happens, what are our choices? And then you always, you split the groups up. So there's always that like sandpaper kid who's going to be like, let's blow it all up, or what, like, who's not just going to like, what does Kim want us to say? But then they've worked through it. Everybody's worked through all 4 of the scenarios. And then you are, when it happens, because these things will happen, maybe not that exact instance you wrote on the piece of paper, but something akin to that, they at least know they've worked with a small group of other people on the team. And when we bring everyone together and say, okay, let's talk about scenario 1. What did you guys have for that? What did you come up with as your number 1 thing that you would do? Or what did you come up with that was kind of controversial, right? Like this whole exercise takes 40 minutes, but it meant that my players felt empowered when the scenarios happened to start to deal with themselves, right? If they had to escalate it to a leadership group or up to the coaches, that was great. But quite often they dealt with it themselves, and we didn't even know about it till way after the fact. So obviously, depending on the age of the players, I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to work with like 8 and 9-year-olds, but certainly with the teenagers, they feel like they have a tool set to use to self-govern a little bit, right? Or at least feel like they've tried to do it on their own first, which I think is really important. Because to Sammy's point, yeah, when we were in pro and at that level, like I can't even remember the coach coming. If they did, it was like a quick one and done because they were all male. Like I don't think when I played pro, I didn't have any female coaches. So it was a very limited amount of time they were in the room for sure. In college, my coach was a female, so that was a little different. But even then, she didn't spend a lot of time in there because her assistant coaches were male, and so if she wanted them in the room, that wasn't going to work out that way either.
Mm-hmm.
Dave,
Thank you.
Dave, I thought your hand was up, Dave. No? Okay, I just wanted to comment on the culture thing. And I'd like to delve into a little bit of the guy's side and, well, the girl's side. I've witnessed really toxic hockey cultures mentoring in female hockey. And a mother was mandated in the room after things got so bad, and that was too late. The social media stuff that went on, the lack of respect for one another and the coach, was just something we lost control of. And it didn't just happen on that one team this year. I'm sure it's coming up the ladder. The culture of the association would not address things that were happening. And I'm just curious on the guy's side. It believes at the adult level, internal leadership is just as important or more important than coaching leadership. So, Dom and Mike, I wonder if you could comment on the room and the culture and the leaders in the room that you really rely on, or they help you with the culture and all the years you've played and coached. Dom?
Yeah, no, I mean it's as a player, you didn't really think of it in these terms, but it was always seemed to be, the real conversations happened when the coaches left, and dependent on the type of character or the type of quote unquote leadership you had within the room, it definitely drove the bus in regards to how it would go. As a coach, even more so, been a part of teams where the the character factor didn't factor in as much as in the selection of players, and the culture of the team was definitely affected by it, right? Even just one in the American League, it's a little bit different. You have your kind of your younger prospects, and then you have your older guys that are kind of veteran guys. But in the years that we had older veteran guys, that were in the room and understood, that you're not always going to be agreeing with everything the coach is saying, but to be able to kind of guide the conversations afterwards, the difference was night and day. And just so, yeah, it was interesting just to hear, in regards to on the women's side, whether you have somebody within, and interesting to hear that there wasn't much time spent by the coaches in the rooms. That makes sense to me. We have locker monitors that kind of monitors, as far as having, in there for the girls. But yeah, no, it's the leadership group within the team and how you in the relationship you have with that leadership group. Like I know there was years where we had leadership groups and we'd bring guys in and talk to them, but it was all just seemed like a formality and everybody was just checking the boxes, and there really wasn't much in the way of everybody, like they were coming in and they would tell us what we thought, what they would tell us what they thought we wanted to hear, and it was likewise, and nothing was ever really accomplished. And I guess it comes, on a different topic, comes down to your leadership's group is have somebody that's not afraid to ruffle your feathers a little bit, as a coach, but as I say, that those tough conversations that we had, definitely you saw the result on the other side, because there were actually a benefit in having those types of conversations.
I don't know if Mike's still on. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mike,
yeah,
go ahead, Mike.
yeah. Well, you definitely got to find a leader that is not influenced. I think that is not afraid to go and speak up. I think that's got to be your first thing. I've been a part of a couple different locker rooms. That's one in St. Louis. We were in last place in January, and I remember Brad Shaw. We arrived in Edmonton, and he said, "All right, D, let's go. We're going to the bar across the street." So we went to this bar across the street, and we sat there for probably about 4 hours, and we didn't even talk anything about hockey. It was awesome, and then the last thing he said, he's just like, "Guys, I'm leaving right now, and I want you guys to figure out for yourself what's going on." And we ended up going from last place to first place to making a playoff spot within one game of the end of the season. So it was pretty amazing, kind of, and really the defense core was really a big push of everything. Yeah, so like there's different ways. I remember in Chicago Wolves, the coach ended up coming in and just like after we lost a few games in a row, he ended up bringing a case, a 2-4, and he ended up throwing it in the middle of the room, 2 cases, and he's just like, "Guys, figure it out." But the one thing that I really found that was pretty, it's really tough for that head coach to go and kind of help out the players and figure out what's going on. I think you almost got to rely on your assistant coaches. Because it's a lot easier to talk to the assistant coach. I feel that a lot of guys are very shy about the head coach. The assistant coach, I remember in Tarian was the head coach, and he would come in and he'd be like, just obviously I don't have a good French accent, but he would come in there and he just go nuts. And then the assistant coaches would come in and like, okay, so really what he really meant was blah, blah, blah. And he kind of went through his whole thing. And the coaches actually ended up talking to all of us and the assistant coach. And it was kind of it was a nice little buffer between the head coach and the assistant coaches. They had it set up pretty well. But yeah, I think that captain has to be a person that's not influenced and somebody that is I wouldn't call it tattletaling, but basically putting it, laying it out exactly what's going on. So
It's great.
I'm just wondering, I don't know how many women are left at Kim, would you be bringing a case of beer into the female room and the adult side? I'm trying to equate this with the national team in terms of how we listened or communicated with players. And I think if that was a weakness,
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really in national team dressing room, so I can't speak to that. But I'm thinking back to some of the pro teams I was on. My first year, I played for Brampton against Sammy and all, and it was the first year the Arrows ever lost the provincial championship, so we were pretty good. And our coach knew what he didn't know, and he barely ever came in the room. Basically Vicky ran the whole team, and Vicky and Hef and Dupes were our top line, so that was pretty good. And he didn't even try to teach. It was basically Vicky's show, and that's where we but he was okay with that. He was just there to cheer us on and support us and get us what we needed. So in some ways that was ideal, but if I look inside that room, you had a lot of people who are now our coaches or leaders in the game who were in that room and capable of doing it. Some of my years of pro were less so, and maybe guys who came from the guy side who tried to be a little bit more of dictators to us. And I think that's the balance point. Maybe you could speak to that, Wally. When you know that the players in the room you know, every pro team I played on with the women had like 4 or 5 Olympians. Like they know more than you. They played at a higher level than you. You know, and how do you manage that? I'm not saying the way the guy in Brampton did it was necessarily ideal, although we had a ton of success. You know, I Thomas coached me when I was in Calgary with, you know, Wick was there at the same time. So that was an interesting dynamic. And that had its challenges, but that's a pretty unique challenge, I think. They had a couple spats on the ice where we just wanted to find the quickest hole to crawl into. And Tim could, I'm sure, tell some stories of that as well. But, you know, then you've got Cassie and Sistorix, and it's basically the whole Olympic team. You know, didn't have to, not a lot of other leadership needed there to make it run. But yeah, I haven't run into a lot of instances where like the players wanted to have a mutiny. But as we all know, like success drives the whole thing. Like my college hockey team won a lot every year. So even if there was drama, like I don't know that many people wanted to rock that boat because we just kept winning. But yeah, usually if it's not going as smooth, the only instance I ever ran into was playing pro. I was on the board for the league with Sammy, and the board made some decisions that our coach wasn't very happy with. So I went from a top 4D playing with Becky Keller to never seeing the ice. And I actually quit at the end of that year, but mostly because I hated the commute in Toronto traffic, not because of him. But, you know, that was a very political, and, you know, I knew exactly how that all happened. But yeah, I haven't had a lot of instances with it. And in minor hockey, again, success, unfortunately, like people will let coaches get away with stuff that I constantly hear stories of guys who are coaching 5 or 6 teams. They don't even know the names of the girls on the teams. You know, they cancel games at the last minute. They're complete jerks, and they're on the board of the association that they're at. So they just get away with murder, and people keep signing up for their teams. I mean, the thing is, these coaches are known entities. It's different in pro. You get drafted, you get traded, like you don't have control, right? But in minor hockey, you have a choice. At least in Toronto, you have a choice. You're not beholden to any particular team or association. There's, you know, free travel, you know, in terms of you don't have a card. So why people decide to, you know, sign up with coaches who, you know, operate in maybe not so great ways is beyond me. But people make that choice knowing quite a bit of information, and they still do it. Those are the ones that really concern me, because ultimately the choices are being made by the parents and not necessarily by the athletes. If we're talking about, you know, maybe even all the way up to U15, right? The daughter may not be making the choice. It may be the parent. And if you know that that coach is maybe not operating above bar, and then why would you put your kid in that situation? Especially, like I said, in Toronto, where like within 20 minutes of here, there's 8 teams you could probably play for all at the same level. Like, you don't need to make that choice. Anyways, I got to run, guys, because the children's are calling. So Wally, thanks for the opportunity. It was fun to present. If anybody wants any of the auxiliary information, as you can imagine, there's a lot more where all that came from. But if there's anything else I can help with, let me know. I'm happy to share, because none of it's rocket science. So thanks again, guys.
You're muted, Wally.
Mute still.
Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to, that year you had me take over the midget team, Haley Irwin was helping me coach. And she, talking about throwing the beer in the room and that, she, it was a Tippett that took over the Olympic team that year, or that one year. Anyways, she said that he saw them leaving the ice and going to work out. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, we're going to work out now." He said, "You guys are doing way too much." And they went on the road, and he gave the captain the team credit card and told the team to go party. So that was, you know, because they weren't doing that well and they weren't getting along that well. And she said it really changed the team. And was it Tippett, or was it who took over that team that year?
Tom, related to that, I have to give credit to Danielle Sauvageau because one of the things she did is she had some private funding, and the girls got $100 each and went to the casino. And those kinds of different, things socially really impacted the team and the direction it went. So I thought that, as a head coach, I just don't think I could have led that group the way it was led by Danielle and Melody Davidson. Question I had for Jordan. Jordan, are you available? Your mute's on, Jordan. Good. Jordan, here's my question. I talked to one of your assistants, the Lowry girl, and she had mentioned the fact that she was in the room and her friend were in the room when you weren't, and that there were things that might have been going on. Maybe you knew about them, maybe you didn't, but she felt comfortable discussing them with the players. That players might not have come to you, but you had an interesting dynamic of coaching staff, and you certainly contributed to the creation of a really true team, an authentic team, I call it, and it had success. So, can you comment on your your culture in that team and your staff, and how you were able to sustain it during the season?
Well, I think, Wally, that it started with the selection of players and wanting to making sure that the character was there. And I've said that before, that it goes back to my experience from a couple of years ago when I basically took forward a team that had been the team previously, and knowing what I know now, that probably shouldn't have. That there were some kids that talent-wise, yes, they could be in that league, but character-wise, they had a lot more growth to occur, and able behaviors that were in their world that probably, well, like I've said many times, that you're not going to change 17 years of enablement by parents and others in 7 months. So it started this year with the culture started with the selection of players. I was just very fortunate with the 2 assistant coaches that I got this year, that both were philosophically on pace with me in development. They both have played elite level female hockey at post-secondary level, and both have actually education backgrounds as well. In that they both, well, one's completing her ed degree right now, and the other one had completed hers in the U.S. Of course, we hold our teachers to a higher standard up here, so she can't teach in Canada. But it's one of those things that is a little frustrating for her, in that she's got to take more coursework to be able to teach up here. But yes, Wally, I think back to what Mike was talking about, how an assistant coach plays a different role than head coach, that players do feel at times that the assistant coach is more approachable, and that piece. But I would say that.
Sorry, Jordan, I was trying to get my speaker on. You're not coming through quite as loud as normal. So, Dave, you've still got your hand up.
Sorry, I'll push it closer. I'm on my desk.
I can't hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that my assistant coaches are more approachable, I guess, as Mike had said, than the head coach at times. And but I also look at it as similar to what Peter Smith had said, that you as a head coach have to make yourself accessible, and I was always there well before any practice or game, and stayed right till the last player left. And reason for that is because with these kids, they're all driving themselves, and I wanted to make sure that they all had a way to get home, which included after one of our games having to help a player from the opposing team booster vehicle because her battery was dead. And it was kind of funny. The one player that I knew always would be prepared for everything. Well, she had the booster cables, and but none of them knew how to use them. And one of the parents that was there said that, well, we had to YouTube this the last time. And another parent that was standing there said, well, he grew up on a farm because I know he knows how to do this. So ended up helping her. But it's one of those pieces that I think that the whole back to the culture piece, there were a lot of things that we did cognizantly along the way to building that culture. And I think back to there's a couple of things always that solidify teams in my mind, and it's either adversity and having to face adversity and going through that adversity piece, or it's something on that social side of things where they get to know each other on the social side. So we did a lot of team builder pieces in that, and we actually faced some adversity early on in the season with no bus showing up and having to carpool to Edmonton, and some of those pieces where it threw kids off and threw their parents off, and so that resiliency piece comes in. But I don't know, as a player, it was always seemed like a line brawl or a bench brawl or something like that would bring a team together, or some off ice party that just happened out of the blue. That was one of those ones that you didn't quite expect, that just where the planets aligned and everybody came together. So those sorts of things. But in minor hockey, of course, neither of those are ones where you'll have any part of. I think I thought back to Dom. I think you were talking about in Europe about the rookie initiation stuff over there, where it was kind of a scavenger hunt type of thing, and how that brought everybody together. And so there's lots of those types of things. And I know that Hal was concerned about not being able to be in the room. I always felt that the dressing room is the players' room anyway. That there are times for the coach to be in, but for the most part, it needs to be theirs. And so yeah, we come in before the game, usually 7 minutes to ice, and it was always really similar time, as well as after a game we follow in, and that was it. But I think those routine things are important for them to count on, that you're not changing it up all the time, and yeah, that room piece. But one of the challenges, Wally, that I think one of the biggest challenges is that leadership group piece, and that we put letters on kids' jerseys, and but we don't talk to them enough about what that means, and we don't work with them on that piece. That just because you have a letter on your jersey doesn't mean you need to solve all the world's problems, or that you're the go-to person. That it does come with some responsibility and in being a role model and that sort, but you're provided with that letter because of the things, the characteristics that you have, not necessarily because you need to be superhuman. So, but I find lots of times that, especially at the start, the kids don't necessarily know what to do with that letter that got sewn on their jersey, though they're proud to have it. So I think that takes a lot of coaching as well. That's a long ramble, Wally. I was listening in. Today is my first day back to school after being off after my procedure, and I really appreciated Kim's presentation, and then I had to go teach floor hockey and watch the physicality piece, which was great in a school that probably has 80% of the kids wouldn't play hockey, that they play soccer. And to see them play floor hockey, though, they're still as competitive as kids that are hockey players too. So it's kind of fun.
Jordan, thanks very much. Dave, have you got your hand up?
I do.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, especially for coaches of our vintage. I know through the way we structure our school at Ivy is we have groups of 78 students that work as a cohort, and they stay together for an entire year. and they actually function as a team. But even though the classroom is their domain and we move in and out as professors, a lot of activity happens online, and a lot of the social dysfunctionality occurs online, and we are not part of that community. And we need to be cognizant within our hockey teams that they will form social networks online, and they will say things a lot meaner to each other online. And I just think we need to be aware of that as almost like a second dressing room that occurs once they leave the rink. And there's a lot of bad things that can happen in that area. And I think just to have our antenna up around that. That's all.
Dave, I've experienced that midget AAA girls, and some parents were wanting to go to court over some of the comments made towards one another, and on the receiving end of it for online things. So that's a toxic culture. And
and I've been a section head where I have to engage with the students on that who have issues. And normally the issues that I've experienced are when students are bullied online, and they're used to being bullied online in a weird way. What upsets them the most, at least in the women I've dealt with at our school who are bullied, is that no one comes to their defense online. And then they therefore feel that their teammates do not support them, or through their silence agree with the bullies and what they're saying. And I just think it's something we don't normally think about, because we're the case of beer in the middle of the room, let's solve the problem type of generation, or other ways to settle it on the ice, and we have a fight at practice and everything's okay. There's just a whole other back channel of information going on that we need to be aware of.
Dave, I just thought of Kim's suggestion where she had 4 issues, and the players went into groups and discussed the 4. And I don't know if that has any merits in terms of an activity for students to formally do in terms of getting to the roots of those problems. Can you comment? Or
I think, as Jordan said, any opportunity to build unity within a group is a great thing to do. Lots of informal activities, whether those are discussions or just team activities together. I'm just saying, we used to be, hey, let's go to the bar together. We can't do that in women's hockey or in minor hockey, but we have to be able to even maybe have those proactive sessions with our teams around conduct online, and how they need to have some respect for each other. And it doesn't guarantee it's going to happen. Yeah. But I think, having those proactive group sessions is always a positive thing.
Like I'm just thinking if that was one of the topics, social media, bullying, and I wouldn't put bullying in because it might cause people not to speak, but the pitfalls of social media and the advantages of social media and how it can build your culture or destroy your culture. That's a topic that maybe a group of girls could discuss openly and honestly proactively before things happened. I don't know, but I would really, that's one thing I wrote down when Kim had mentioned the discussions in the groups, and they always came up with solutions themselves, because in the end, they're the ones that have to communicate with each other and learn to trust and respect one another. So, well, it's been another great session.
Those topics would be really good, actually, and adding that social media piece would be important. With our crew, we had a phone hotel that it was basically it's a closet shoe organizer, and put the players' helmet numbers, stickers on it, and as soon as the kids walked into the dressing room, their phone had to go into that, and so all 19 phones would be in there. But that being said, there's a lot of time outside of that where they had their phones and things like that. One thing that I learned a few years ago that was actually a little surprising, but not so much, was asking a group of kids how many had texted someone else that was in the same room about somebody that was in that room. Whereas if when we were younger, if you wanted to say something behind somebody's back, you had to do it usually when they weren't around. Well, now they can text each other that, and that's where the real damaging piece to culture can happen. And I think that's where being aware of that is something a person has to be being proactive with it. And I really like what Kim said about going through a few scenarios. It's kind of, Wally, it's kind of like going back to what you talked about in 2002, where you guys made a list of all the things that could have went wrong going into Salt Lake. And it's being that proactive piece, helping them to manage it. We won't manage all the pitfalls, but should be able to manage a few. And so that's the big thing. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is the important thing is that the worst thing that you can do in that situation is do nothing. Is to figure that it'll get better, or that the kids can handle it. Yeah, we're not hired to be counselors or mediators, but unfortunately it becomes part of the role.
Well, any other comments? Dom, I'm curious whether you've encountered any social media problems with your groups.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting, going through now with on the girls' side, talking about, girls texting about one another when they're sitting right there. Like, I guess my question to you, Jordan, is how do you deal with that? Because I'm like, and again, this is trying to, progress and find the right way to do it, but like they'll literally lie right to your face, right? And so, like, how does the accountability even look from that side of things?
Well, it's actually kind of funny, Dom, that myself and a couple of administrators were talking about that a few years ago, when the first cyberbullying stuff was coming out, and we said, this is something that's awful that's happening, because as Tim was saying there, that people feel braver online, but it actually became easier to investigate because people keep screenshots. So it's more definitive. Whereas if back in the day, and you and I are on the same team, and it's just you and I in the locker room, and I say something disparaging against you, and you go to an assistant coach with saying that I did, I just can deny it. Whereas screenshots now, they can't deny it. You just lay the screenshot out there and you go, okay. But I think that's where using Rick's team covenant at the start of the year, coming up with that together, and these are the rules. This is what we've come up with as a team, and so if you're doing this, well, this is the consequence, and that's the other piece with the kids, is the consistency of consequence too. Is that it doesn't matter whether it's your team captain or whether it's the player that is seen to be the lowest skilled on the team, that they all receive the same consequence for the same action. Of course, within reason, you have to investigate everything individually, treat them as an individual, but if it's a similar offense, they need similar consequence.
Yeah.
But it isn't getting easier, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
And the other one, and it's too bad that Sammy and Kim are gone, is the whole idea that, well, how many times in your career did you see two players get into a dust-up on the ice where it actually ended up in fisticuffs, and within a couple of days they were back to being regular teammates? Whereas with females, they will forgive, but they won't forget. And and it's not a forgiveness right back to ground zero. It's a forgiveness with conditions, and that was one of the issues that I had with the team a couple of years ago. That there were historical things that, and that's tough to navigate through stuff that's 2 and 3 years old. Historical bad blood amongst players or bad blood amongst parents, which adds a different wrinkle too.
Yeah, I'm actually talking about parents. I'm dealing with that now. There's players that you're recruiting, and certain parents are like, "Well, we can't play with that individual," and now you're dealing with something that happened when they were 12U. Like it's, so, but yeah.
I'm just thinking, and this goes back to Kim's suggestion and Jordan, also to this preparation before the Olympics with the girls team, where list everything that could go wrong in a season as a coach and as a team related to this topic. So problems that occur through social media, if you could talk about them before the season, early in the season, and address them, and they discuss with one another the pros and cons of the importance of real authentic respect, which is what you're trying to do with students. You're trying to teach them that, and I think it really overrides the end result. I don't know whether it's possible or feasible or necessary, but if you pick your players well, as Jordan did, he selected based on character, and it led to being able to do everything he wanted to do. But in your case, Dom, you can't do that. They're not all lined up getting the pick of best. So you're going to take people, and they have to learn those lessons over time. In time, the parents will appreciate that, I hope. Well, I'm sort of I'm feeling pretty normal, except for a cough and whatnot with COVID. But I tested positive yesterday. I think I mentioned it to a number of people. I'm really glad Kim came on, and one of the things that's been brought up with me is I talked to Bob Laux about where he's been, and he's mentioned, well, he's not in female hockey. So, and it's just like what happened today. Kim came on and Mike came on, and Mike had that male look right away, and I'm trying to make sure that we can satisfy the needs of both people, both genders, and it's the same as relationship. We're different, Venus and Mars, but we're playing the same sport here. I think we can learn from one another. So, but that's something, Rob. When you were coaching the American League and you were actively before you took the job at the school, we're just trying to balance the session. So if we get guys on, we can engage them, and if we get girls on, we can get engaged. I think both can help the other. I think that the female game is going to teach. It's going to really teach you how to coach, because they want to know.
Yeah, and I mean, no, I agree. I mean, it's the way the game's. It's definitely the way the game's going. It's just that communication piece, and it's just we all agree. And I mean, this is overstated, but the way we were taught, is a lot different than the way people are taught now.
Okay. Well, I got to sign off here, and gonna have a little nap and drink some hot tea and vitamin C,
Feel
D,
better,
and
Wally.
zinc. Okay.
Feel better, Wally.
So thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
Down the road, I believe Thomas Kachina is on the 21st, and we're looking to book a session in May with Ken Babby and Billy Bridges. They're both, Ken's coached for 3 Olympics, I think now. Billy's played in every Olympics as his player, and just some excellent dynamics there in talking about their program. But it's all about coaching and team building and trust and respect that they managed to create in their sport. So looking forward to that moving down. And thanks very much, everybody, for joining on. I got to cut out here. And